Picture this. You're at a party, surrounded by people laughing, talking, showing off their latest achievements on social media. Everyone's performing, everyone's broadcasting their every move. But there's one person in the corner, quiet, observing, saying nothing. Most people would think this person is boring, maybe even weak. They couldn't be more wrong. That silent observer might just be the most dangerous person in the room. They're following a strategy so powerful, so psychologically devastating, that it's been hidden in plain sight for over 500 years. Today, I'm going to reveal Machiavelli's most twisted secret: how to rebuild yourself in complete silence, while everyone else destroys themselves with noise. Before we dive deep into this psychological warfare, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. Trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. This isn't just another self-help video. This is about understanding the dark psychology that separates the rulers from the ruled. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote The Prince in 1513. But what most people don't realize is that his most powerful teachings weren't meant for the masses. They were written for those who understood that true power operates in the shadows, in silence, in the spaces between words. While everyone else is busy announcing their plans, their goals, their next moves, the Machiavellian mind works differently. It understands that silence isn't just golden. It's pure psychological uranium. Let's start with something that's going to disturb you. Right now, as you're watching this video, you're probably thinking about the last time you shared a goal, a plan, or an achievement on social media. Maybe you posted about starting a new workout routine, launching a business, or learning a new skill. Here's what Machiavelli would tell you: you just sabotaged yourself. Not because sharing is inherently bad, but because you gave away your most precious resource, the element of surprise, the power of the unknown. Think about it psychologically. When you announce your intentions, several things happen in the minds of others. First, they start expecting you to fail. It's human nature. People are unconsciously programmed to doubt, especially when someone else is trying to rise above their current station. Second, you've now created witnesses to your potential failure, which adds pressure and anxiety that didn't exist before. Third, and this is the most Machiavellian part, you've given your competitors and enemies a roadmap to sabotage you. But here's where it gets really twisted. When you work in silence, you create what psychologists call the revelation effect. People are naturally more impressed by sudden, unexpected success than by gradual, announced progress. It's the difference between someone saying, "I'm going to get ripped this year," and then showing up 6 months later completely transformed without ever mentioning their gym routine. The second person doesn't just look stronger physically. They appear more powerful, more mysterious, more formidable. Machiavelli understood that perception is reality in the game of power. When you rebuild yourself in silence, you're not just changing your circumstances. You're crafting a psychological weapon. You're becoming the person others can't quite figure out, can't predict, can't control. And that uncertainty? That's where real power lives. Let's get practical about this. When I say rebuild yourself in silence, I'm talking about a complete psychological restructuring. It starts with what Machiavelli called the mask of necessity. You need to appear exactly as others expect, while internally becoming someone entirely different. This isn't about deception for evil purposes. It's about protection and strategic advantage. Think about someone in your life who seems to have everything together, who never complains, who handles problems with calm efficiency. Chances are, you have no idea what they're actually working on behind the scenes. That's intentional. They've mastered the art of silent reconstruction. While others are busy broadcasting their struggles and victories, these people are quietly solving problems, building skills, and positioning themselves for opportunities that haven't even appeared yet. The psychological principle here is profound. When you work in silence, you eliminate what researchers call social reality distortion. This is when other people's expectations, opinions, and reactions start influencing your behavior more than your actual goals. Every time you share a plan or ask for advice, you're inviting other people's mental models into your decision-making process. You're no longer rebuilding yourself. You're rebuilding yourself according to the collective unconscious of your social circle. Machiavelli was obsessed with this concept. He believed that most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they allow too many voices into their inner world. The truly powerful, he observed, make decisions in isolation, execute in silence, and reveal results only when it serves their strategic interests. Now, let's talk about something that's going to make you uncomfortable. You probably have people in your life right now who are secretly hoping you don't change, don't improve, don't rise above your current situation. They might not consciously wish you harm, but psychologically, your success represents a threat to their worldview. If you can transform yourself, what's their excuse for staying the same? When you announce your plans to rebuild yourself, you're essentially asking these people for permission. You're inviting them to judge whether your goals are realistic, whether you're capable of achieving them, whether you deserve success. Even worse, you're giving them the power to discourage you with seemingly innocent comments like, "That's great, but have you considered?" Or, "I tried something similar once, and suit." The silent rebuilder sidesteps this entire psychological minefield. They understand that most people are unconscious enemies of change, not because they're evil, but because change is threatening to the human psyche. When someone else transforms themselves successfully, it highlights everyone else's lack of progress. That's why dramatic transformations often cost people friendships. Not because success is bad, but because it forces others to confront their own stagnation. Here's where Machiavellian psychology gets really interesting. The most successful rebuilders use what I call strategic invisibility. They become systematically invisible to the very people who might sabotage their progress, while becoming increasingly visible to the opportunities and connections that can accelerate their transformation. Let me give you a concrete example. Say you want to rebuild your financial situation. The average person announces this goal to friends and family, asks for advice, shares their progress on social media. The Machiavellian rebuilder does the opposite. They quietly start learning about investments, networking with financially successful people, developing new income streams, all while maintaining their current lifestyle and social image. 6 months later, when they've made significant progress, they're in a position of strength rather than vulnerability. The psychological advantage is enormous. Instead of being seen as someone struggling to improve their finances, they're seen as someone who's mysteriously good with money. Instead of receiving unsolicited advice from people who aren't financially successful themselves, they're attracting opportunities from people who respect competence and results. This brings us to one of Machiavelli's most important insights. Timing is everything in the psychology of power. When you rebuild yourself in silence, you control the timing of revelation. You decide when to show your new skills, when to reveal your progress, when to demonstrate your transformation. This isn't just about surprising people, it's about maximizing psychological impact. Think about it from a neurological perspective. The human brain is constantly making predictions about other people's behavior and capabilities. When those predictions are suddenly proven wrong by dramatic evidence, it creates what scientists call a prediction error. This prediction error forces the brain to rapidly update its model of who you are and what you're capable of. The bigger the surprise, The more dramatic the mental update, the more respect and attention you command. But here's the twist that most people miss. The goal isn't just to impress others. It's to fundamentally change how you see yourself. When you rebuild in silence, you prove to yourself that you don't need external validation, approval, or encouragement to make dramatic changes. You develop what psychologists call internal locus of control. The deep belief that your outcomes are determined by your actions, not by circumstances or other people's opinions. This psychological shift is huge. Most people are externally driven. They need encouragement to start, validation to continue, and praise to feel successful. The silent rebuilder becomes internally driven. They generate their own motivation, measure their own progress, and define their own success. This makes them psychologically unstoppable, because they're no longer dependent on other people's energy and attention. Machiavelli called this the sovereignty of the self. He believed that true power comes from becoming completely self-sufficient psychologically. When you don't need other people's approval to feel good about your progress, when you don't need their encouragement to continue working, when you don't need their validation to feel successful, you become extremely dangerous to the status quo. Let's talk about the dark side of this strategy, because Machiavelli was nothing if not honest about human nature. When you successfully rebuild yourself in silence, you will trigger intense psychological reactions in other people. Some will be impressed and want to learn from you. Others will be curious and want to understand how you changed. But some will be threatened, jealous, and will try to undermine your progress or diminish your achievements. This is where most people fail. They complete their silent transformation, reveal their results, and then get emotionally derailed by negative reactions from people they thought would be supportive. The Machiavellian mind expects this resistance. It understands that success always creates enemies, and that the more dramatic your transformation, the more intense the resistance will be. The key is to use this resistance as fuel rather than letting it discourage you. When people criticize your new habits, question your motives, or try to pull you back to your old patterns, you're receiving confirmation that your transformation is real and significant. Their discomfort is evidence of your power. Now, let me share something that's going to change how you think about personal development forever. Most self-help advice is actually designed to keep you weak. It encourages you to share your struggles, ask for help constantly, and rely on community support for motivation. While this might feel good emotionally, it creates psychological dependence rather than psychological strength. Machiavelli would look at modern self-help culture and see it as an elaborate system for preventing real transformation. By encouraging people to externalize their change process, to make it social and communal, it ensures that their progress remains slow, supervised, and ultimately controllable by others. The silent rebuilder rejects this entire framework. They understand that real strength comes from learning to change themselves without external support, validation, or supervision. This doesn't mean being antisocial or refusing all help. It means becoming the primary source of your own transformation rather than a participant in someone else's system. Here's a practical exercise that will demonstrate the power of this approach. Pick one area of your life that you want to change. It could be your fitness, your finances, your skills, your relationships, anything. But instead of announcing this goal or asking for advice, commit to making progress for 90 days in complete silence. Don't post about it. Don't talk about it. Don't even think about sharing it until the 90 days are over. During those 90 days, you'll discover something profound about your own psychology. You'll realize how much mental energy you've been wasting on managing other people's expectations and reactions. You'll discover that you're capable of much more sustained effort when you're not performing for an audience. Most importantly, You'll develop the psychological muscles that separate truly powerful people from everyone else. But here's the warning that comes with this territory. Once you experience the power of silent transformation, you'll start seeing how weak and dependent most people are on external validation. You'll notice how much energy they waste on social performance rather than actual progress. This knowledge can make you feel isolated or superior, and both reactions are dangerous. The mature Machiavellian uses this insight to become more effective, not more arrogant. They understand that most people are trapped in patterns of external dependence, not because they're weak, but because they've never been taught the alternative. Your job isn't to judge them, but to use your psychological advantage responsibly and strategically. This brings us to one of the most sophisticated aspects of Machiavellian psychology: strategic vulnerability. Once you've rebuilt yourself in silence and developed real internal strength, you can choose when and how to appear vulnerable to others. This isn't weakness. It's advanced psychological strategy. When someone with real power shows vulnerability, it creates psychological bonds and trust that wouldn't exist otherwise. But the key difference is choice. The silent rebuilder chooses vulnerability from a position of strength, while most people are vulnerable from a position of actual weakness. This difference is invisible to casual observers, but creates dramatically different psychological dynamics. Let's address the elephant in the room. Some of you are thinking, this sounds manipulative, calculating, or even sociopathic. Let me be clear. Understanding psychology isn't the same as exploiting people. Machiavelli studied power because he lived in a world where the powerful regularly destroyed the powerless. His insights weren't meant to create more cruelty, but to help capable people protect themselves and achieve their potential in a world that often punishes authenticity and rewards deception. The modern world isn't as violent as Renaissance Italy, but it's arguably more psychologically complex. We're surrounded by systems designed to capture our attention, influence our decisions, and monetize our insecurities. Learning to rebuild yourself in silence isn't about becoming manipulative. It's about becoming immune to manipulation. When you develop the ability to change yourself without external validation, you become much harder to control through social pressure, advertising, or peer influence. You make decisions based on your actual values and goals rather than on what others expect from you. This makes you more authentic, not less. Here's something most people don't realize about silence. It's active, not passive. The silence I'm talking about isn't about withdrawing from the world or becoming antisocial. It's about becoming selective with your energy and strategic with your attention. It's about understanding that every word you speak, every goal you announce, every struggle you share is a form of psychological currency that you're spending. The question becomes, are you spending that currency wisely? Are you using your words and attention to accelerate your growth? Or are you unconsciously sabotaging yourself by inviting too many opinions, expectations, and emotional reactions into your development process? Most successful people intuitively understand this principle, even if they can't articulate it. If you look at the people who have made dramatic transformations in their lives, you'll often find that they did the most important work during periods when they were relatively quiet about their progress. They might share the results, but they protected the process. This protection of process is crucial because transformation is psychologically fragile in its early stages. Like a seed that needs to be buried in darkness before it can grow toward light, psychological change often needs to happen away from scrutiny and judgment. When you expose developing changes to social pressure too early, you risk killing them before they have a chance to take root. Machiavelli understood that human psychology operates on multiple levels simultaneously. On the surface, people say they want others to succeed and improve themselves, but unconsciously, most people are invested in maintaining predictable social hierarchies. Your success disrupts those hierarchies and creates psychological discomfort for others. When you rebuild in silence, you minimize this discomfort until your transformation is complete and undeniable. By then, people have no choice but to update their mental model of who you are. The fait accompli is much more psychologically powerful than the announced intention. Let me share a final insight that ties all of this together. The most powerful people in any field share one common characteristic. They have learned to be comfortable with being misunderstood. They don't need everyone to know what they're working on, why they make certain decisions, or how they achieved their results. This comfort with being misunderstood is actually a form of psychological freedom that most people never experience. When you need others to understand and approve of your choices, you're giving them veto power over your life. When you're comfortable being misunderstood, you're free to make decisions based purely on effectiveness and results. This is the ultimate expression of Machiavellian psychology. The ability to act in your own best interests without requiring emotional support from others. The path I'm describing isn't easy, and it's not for everyone. It requires you to develop psychological strength that most people never build. It requires you to become comfortable with solitude, uncertainty, and the possibility that others might not understand your choices. But for those who are willing to walk this path, the rewards are extraordinary. You'll discover that you're capable of much more than you ever imagined when you stop asking for permission to change. You'll find that you can rebuild any aspect of yourself when you're willing to do the work without an audience. Most importantly, you'll develop the kind of quiet confidence that comes from knowing you don't need anyone's approval to become who you're meant to be. If this resonates with you, if you're ready to stop performing your personal development for others and start actually developing yourself, then hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this video with someone who's ready to understand the psychology of real power. And remember, the most dangerous person in any room is the one who has learned to rebuild themselves in silence. The choice is yours. You can continue broadcasting your intentions, asking for advice, and hoping for encouragement from people who might not actually want you to succeed. Or you can embrace the dark psychology of silent transformation and discover what you're truly capable of when nobody's watching. Machiavelli's hidden path to power isn't about manipulating others. It's about freeing yourself from the psychological chains that keep most people weak, dependent, and predictable. In a world of noise, silence becomes a weapon. In a culture of oversharing, privacy becomes power. In a society that rewards performance over results, the person who achieves without announcing becomes unstoppable. The revolution you need isn't happening in the streets or on social media. It's happening in the quiet moments when you choose to work on yourself without telling anyone, when you make progress without posting about it, when you transform yourself without asking for permission or validation. This is Machiavelli's hidden path to power. The understanding that true strength is built in silence. Real change happens in private. And the most dangerous people are those who have learned to rebuild themselves when nobody else is watching. Your transformation starts now, in silence, with no announcement necessary.